In the first game of the ACC game of the Adrian Autry era at Syracuse, Virginia flat out embarrassed SU. 84-62 the final in Charlottesville, and as the great Yogi Berra said, it got late early for the Orange, back and forth as the first half got underway, but towards the end of the first 20 minutes of play, the Cavaliers stole the show behind Isaac McNeely's 22 points. Virginia shot nearly 60% from behind the three-point line in this game to absolutely torch Adrian Autry's defense. We've got a reporter, Klaff, a whole lot coming up here on Orange Press Pass, and it starts right now. Welcome inside our CitrusTV studios for another episode of Orange Press Pass after Virginia's 84-62 win in the ACC opener between the two schools. Ethan, Frank, Hudson, Ridley, and Liam Griffin. Guys, this was flat out embarrassing for Syracuse.
Yeah, I mean, right away from the jump, Syracuse proved that they could not hang with UVA, and they really got overwhelmed early on, Ethan. It was honestly pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, Ethan, an absolute catastrophe performance. 22 points right out of the chute. Not the way you want to start ACC play.
No, and for Syracuse, it just wasn't the performance you were looking for. After such a dominant win over LSU, this was, kind of a step back after what we saw on Tuesday night in the Dome. So let's look at how things played out between Syracuse and Virginia in the first ACC game of the year. The opening day in the ACC, Naheem McLeod winning the opening tip-off, as he usually does. John Paul Jones Arena, an intimidating venue in Charlottesville, and McLeod gets off to a hot start. The Orange were up 5-0 at one point, but Reese Beekman, the leader for this Virginia team, gets the Hoos into the lead at 7-5, just about 5 minutes in. But Justin Taylor, the Charlottesville native, on the other end, Hudson.
Yeah, but this three right here, Ethan, off balance, that was the only one he hit all day, finishing 1 for 6.
Yeah, a really tough day for the hometown kid in Taylor, who finished 1 of 6 from the field and 1 of 6 from behind the three-point line. Virginia, known for its defense, turning defense into offense to open up a lead towards the end of the half, Liam.
Yeah, and this jumper here from Reese Beekman came into the game as the Cavs' leading scorer, had a very quiet but effective 13 points.
He is a really, really dynamic player. Wouldn't be surprised to see him on some all-ACC teams. Mentioned the three-pointers a little bit earlier. Virginia was absolutely nails from behind the arc, and it was Isaac McNeely who had it going all afternoon long, Hudson.
McNeely, 16 points at the half. That was already a career high. Then he piled on a further 6 after the break. A impressive performance.
Ryan Dunn, the defensive motor for this team, swatting J.J. Starling there. And then for Syracuse, Kyle Klaff finally got into the game in the second half. He nailed a 3, but it was really too little, too late at that point. Virginia absolutely dominated, up 13 at the break, and just kept adding on, Liam.
Yeah, Virginia was 12 of 21 from beyond the arc today.
Blake Buchanan makes the jumper here, and Virginia would go on to roll 84-62, a 22-point win for the Cavaliers. When you look at the numbers from this game, guys, what stands out to you, Hudson?
Well, for me, really, it was SU's plus minuses that you can see. Judah Mintz, minus 28 on the game. You compare that to UVA, where you have 5 guys with plus minuses of 20 plus. They ran them off the floor completely. Really wasn't even close.
Ethan, it was a well-balanced scoring effort for Virginia today. Even though Isaac McNeely led the way, their top 3 players only combined to score 45 points. That's barely half. You don't really see that on a basketball floor. Really well-balanced scoring effort from UVA today.
UVA was effective, and now we're joined by someone on the University of the Virginia campus, Klaff, who is at John Paul Jones Arena, taking in the sights and sounds in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Syracuse, a very inexperienced team, and we've talked about that a lot over the course of this season, playing its first true road game of the year. What did you see from Syracuse that made them so uncomfortable?
Yeah, Ethan, I mean, to begin with, people call Syracuse the Loud House. That is totally not the case when you step into John Paul Jones Arena. That is what seems like the true Loud House, much louder, and a sold-out crowd here. Such an intimidating atmosphere. 4 players for 4 starting sophomores on the Syracuse lineup to be coming into young, inexperienced crew, like you mentioned. I mean, at one point in the game, the crowd started chanting air ball, and it really got into Syracuse players' heads, and it seemed as if almost every time they would chant air ball, a Syracuse player would actually hit an air ball. So definitely a really tough go-around, especially opening up a season opener, or ACC season opener on the road.
Annie, when UVA started to hit shots, they really got on a roll. 4 times the Cavaliers scored 4 buckets in a row. 2 of those times they scored 5 in a row. I'm wondering, why couldn't SU stop these runs like we've seen all season long?
Virginia did an incredible job at making movement and cuts on the court in order to make space for themselves when they had the ball. I mean, Syracuse did a really tough job, difficult job, making that defensive play against those Virginia players who had time on the ball, which is why they had such great plays and such time to shoot on those 3-pointers, especially from Isaac McNeely, who went 6 for 8 from beyond the arc. There was a point at one time in the second half when Syracuse went on a 10-0 run, and on the other side of the court, the UVA players were in a scoring drought for over 4 minutes. And at that point, that was when we spoke to Naheem McLeod, and he said that was because they really focused on speeding up the play for Virginia offense. And so that really, their strength in the offensive play really came from when they had time on the ball.
Annie, obviously a tough offensive day for SU. 62 points, near the bottom of the season total. Barely shooting 40% from the field. An abysmal 5 of 20 from beyond the arc. Tony Bennett's crew, known for its defense over the years. What specifically did UVA do to flummox the SU offense?
The Virginia defense was really good at helping in the back line to cut off those plays and especially cut off in the lanes. I mean, going into this game, Tony Bennett said that they were aware of Judah Mintz's capability, scoring 33 points against LSU and then holding him to 5 points today. That's exactly what they wanted to do. And it was more of a holistic defensive unit approach from this Virginia defense and not so much as an individual defensive moment. We spoke to J.J. Starling after the matchup, and he said that there really wasn't any individual players that were so strong by themselves on this Virginia squad, but more so as a defensive unit altogether is what makes this Virginia team and defense so special.
Days left for Syracuse to regroup before it faces Cornell coming up in the Dome on Tuesday. Thank you so much for your time and looking forward to continuing to follow everything you're doing down in Charlottesville. The Orange drop a tough one by 22 against UVA, 84-62, your final from John Paul Jones Arena. We got a whole lot more to come here on Orange Press Pass, including looking at why Virginia was so effective against Syracuse on the offensive and defensive ends of the floor. We'll be right back.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
I guess I have really been looking for love in this dating app. Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.
Welcome back to Orange Press Pass after Syracuse's 84-62 loss in its ACC opener at Virginia. Ethan Frank, Hudson Ridley, Liam Griffin here to break it all down. And guys, we got to talk about Syracuse's best player, Judah Mintz. 33 points against LSU in the ACC-SEC Challenge on Tuesday. 5 points, all in the first half against Virginia today. Hudson, why was Virginia so effective in slowing down Syracuse's most talented player?
Well, Ethan, those 5 points, not even a season low, because if you'll remember, he had 4 against Chaminade. But honestly, it really was Tony Bennett's incredible defense. That pack line defense that he has, Liam, clogged up the lanes for Judah Mintz, didn't allow him to get to the hole, and once he kicked outside to try to get more shooters involved, nobody was there because they were just so suffocating outside. The 2 big shooters for SU today, Chris Bell and Justin Taylor, who have been the big shooters all year long, 2 for 11 combined. I mean, they fully suffocated this team, and it started with Judah Mintz by not giving him any opportunity.
Yeah, Hudson, you mentioned the pack line defense. It's easily shiftable from zone to man, and that's what makes it so tough. And you know Tony Bennett preaches defense game in and game out. Judah Mintz was never going to tally 33 points, and the struggles aren't necessarily predictable, but they aren't terribly surprising. Judah Mintz airballed a 3 at one point, and Adrian Autry said it after the game. Virginia did a really good job of having 10 eyes on the ball, understanding the motions that needed to be made, and it left Judah Mintz flummoxed.
I mean, how about the plus-minus, guys? This is a number we have to speak about. Minus 28 in 27 minutes. That was 10 worse than anyone else on the floor for Syracuse. A really, really tough day for Mintz. On the other side of things, a really, really strong day for Isaac McNeely, Leo.
Yeah, Isaac McNeely came into the game shooting just under 50% from beyond the arc, which is remarkable at any level of basketball. And it wasn't just the fact that he was making threes, it was how he made threes, Hudson. It wasn't necessarily one way or the other. It was catch and shoot, dribble and score. And if he needed to, get a little pump fake the defender, have him go airborne, and then he just made a 3 there as well. Isaac McNeely in this game was ridiculous.
Like you said, he can do it in every single way. Off the dribble, he had a couple where he would get the pass, pump fake, dribble, one shot, boom. Just like that. Everywhere. Behind the arc by a lot. I mean, he just could not miss. When it's your day, it's your day. It hadn't been Isaac McNeely's day all season long, but today, that was exactly what happened. A career-high 22, and a career-high even at the half, as we mentioned, with 16. He came out the gate hot, and he stayed hot.
And he did it in a lot of different ways, was scoring in the lane, as you saw there over Naheem McLeod, got it going from mid-range and then from behind the arc. Absolutely lethal. When it comes to Syracuse turning the ball over, has been an issue for the Orange. In 2 of the last 5 games, turned the ball over 15 times and in double digits in 7 out of 8 games now this season. Hudson, why is this such a big issue?
I mean, when you play big teams and you have a ton of turnovers, that's going to plague you all season long. That's what's been for SU this entire season, and it demoralizes you. We saw earlier in the game when Quadir Copeland, he tried to pass it out to Malik Brown. It kind of got a little dribbled, and you could see a collective sigh amongst everybody when he missed that pass, because it's turnover after turnover. And it's like we said earlier with these runs, those turnovers, 14 today, really help UVA continue to build on runs, and you get so behind that you just cannot come back.
Yeah, Hudson, you mentioned it. It's been an issue all season. 10-plus turnovers for every game, with the exception of Colgate. And against a defensive-minded team like Virginia, you're going to get punished for it much more than you will against any other teams. And this is a team I've noticed, Hudson, tries to make some flashy plays, and it comes off as careless. Hudson, I'm just going to say it. This is not a good ball-handling team, with the exception of maybe Judah Mintz and J.J. Starling. Naheem McLeod looks very uncomfortable every time he touches the ball, and Quadir Copeland, as big of an energizer as he can be, doesn't exactly take care of the ball all the time. This is an issue, Hudson, that has to be resolved right here, right now, or SU, big trouble.
Well, guys, Syracuse was in a lot of trouble. I mean, we talked about it earlier. There was no way Isaac McNeely wasn't going to be our Orange Press Pass player of the game. 22 points, a career high. Hudson mentioned it. 16 in the first half. He was 6 of 8 from 3 in this game. He was so effective tearing apart the Syracuse defense, whether it was against man, whether it was against zone. It didn't matter who was guarding him. Judah Mintz, I don't care. J.J. Starling, I don't care. Throw a bigger guy like Quadir Copeland on him, I don't care. Still, this guy was unbelievable in so many different ways for Virginia, and his impact on the floor. Made 6 threes in this game. No one else on either side made more than 2. A really, really impressive performance from Isaac McNeely, who's coming into his own and might just be a huge weapon as Virginia moves forward in the ACC this season as one of the top teams in the conference. A whole lot more still to come here on Orange Press Pass. We're taking a trip on the road. Syracuse going to Georgetown, Oregon, Duke coming up. Big games away from Central New York. How are they going to do? We're going to find out. Stay with us here on OPP.
Here's to the straggly ones, the lopsided ones, the first ones, the I miss my beard ones. But hey, I look good with this ones. But no way he's grown that in a week ones. The black, brown, red, and gray ones. The, that one. The itchy ones. The never forgotten ones. The ones grown by Dad. The ones grown for Dad. The started late ones. The absolutely filthy ones. The drawn on ones. The finger ones. The pin ones. The I nearly didn't do it this year ones. And the yeah, why not ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations, and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Learn more at Movember.com.
Welcome into Orange Press Pass alongside Liam Griffin and Hudson Ridley. I'm Ethan Frank. Guys, we're going road tripping. Syracuse was on the road today. It just got back from Hawaii. The Orange are ready to go on the road again. But first, I'll ask you, have you ever driven in an RV before?
Oh my goodness. I had an RV over the pandemic. We had it for about 3 years, drove it everywhere. You know what? My mom's going to be disappointed we got rid of that. I loved that thing. But I'm not too sad to see it go.
Liam, there's no way you've been in an RV.
I wish I have. It's on my bucket list, Ethan, but have not gotten there yet.
Nobody can say they're surprised by that. Hudson, I'm very impressed by your RV knowledge.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you must be the king of this game we're about to play. Syracuse just finished up a road trip in Virginia. I mentioned just got back from 3 games on the island of Oahu in Hawaii as well, and now going to Georgetown. How much of a concern is it to you, Hudson, that Syracuse is going to be playing away from the JMA Wireless Dome again next weekend?
You know, we can be concerned about SU on the road all we want, but here's the thing. It's also against Georgetown, a pathetic Georgetown team that really hasn't done a whole lot this season. Barely beat Merrimack, barely beat American University, which sounds like a fake college, even though it is. Sounds like a fake school in overtime. I mean, some of these schools that they play, they lost to Holy Cross. They had a big win over crosstown rival for Syracuse Lemoyne. But honestly, if we're being honest, Georgetown is not what they were in the past. This is not a good team, and this shouldn't matter at all.
Yeah, Hudson, the footage you're seeing right now is the last time SU played Georgetown in D.C. It was a 79-75 SU loss. Georgetown came back from a 10-point deficit. You ready for this? That was Georgetown's last high major win of the year. The Hoyas beat Howard after that, then went on a 21 game losing streak to end the season. That's absolutely pathetic. And you mentioned it. Georgetown this season, sandwiched between Troy and Old Dominion in Ken Palm's net rankings. This is a team that should have no business being on the same level as Syracuse, Ethan, even though the pride of Providence, Ed Cooley, is the new head coach.
Well, I know you're a big Providence and Rhode Island guy, Liam, but Ed Cooley decided to leave for greener pastures down in Washington, D.C., and I know that's something you're pretty fired up about. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. You saw those numbers. This is a different Syracuse team now that's going to face Georgetown. Liam, another intriguing game away from Central New York is not a true road game, but a neutral site game. Syracuse taking on Oregon at the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. How are you feeling heading into that December matchup?
That is a very, very curious matchup, Ethan, because you mentioned it. It's being played on a neutral court in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's the middle of nowhere for pretty much any team. And
have you ever been to South Dakota?
I actually have. I went to Mount Rushmore. Can't say I've been to the Sanford Pentagon, though. And it's a slightly longer trip for Syracuse than it is Oregon, Hudson. But when you look at these two teams, it's a matchup that fairly kind of favors Oregon on paper. The Ducks are currently the first team out, I should say, in Joe Lunardi's bracketology. And last time these two teams matched up, it was also at a neutral site, an 80-65 loss at Madison Square Garden. Bull went up for 26 points and 9 rebounds. That Ducks team lost to Virginia in the Sweet 16. So could make an interesting change, Ethan, but not really sure how it'll impact the game in the long run.
LG, you know what scares me about this game? 8 seniors. They have 8 on Oregon. That is way more than Syracuse has, because you know how many they have? They have none. 0 seniors. This depth that they have with Oregon is the reason that I don't give SU much of a chance in this game. If you look at 8 seniors versus 0, you look at the competitive advantage that gives you. I mean, this is a prime target to get blown out of the water, even when we think it could be a close game. I understand a neutral court. Sioux Falls, though, a lot closer to Oregon. I don't know if you check the map. It's probably a lot closer. I honestly think that's going to feel like a home game for Oregon.
0 chance, though, Hudson?
I don't really give them a shot. After what I saw today, I don't give them a shot.
Wow. I mean, strong feelings here from Mr. Ridley on the part of the Ducks. He's going to be, I mean, even after last night's loss to Washington in football, he's still quacking his way all the way up here in Syracuse. One more road game that's really interesting. You turn the calendar to the new year. Maybe Syracuse gets a win against Oregon like Liam thinks. Maybe, they get blown out like Hudson thinks. Duke, January 2nd, Cameron Indoor Stadium. Hudson, that's going to be a tough one.
Ethan, Duke is still Duke. No matter how many questions will swirl around them, a loss to Arkansas, I mean, even if they break down without Coach K, this is not a team that Syracuse can beat. At this point in the season, with Syracuse's youth, I mentioned it with the same problem in Oregon, Duke is still a youthful team, but they're a youthful team that's coached incredibly well. That environment that you have to worry about, you don't have to worry about that in Sioux Falls. But Cameron Indoor, the crazies will come for Syracuse and rip their throats out. This is not a winnable game. I wouldn't put this exactly in the Oregon category where it's completely unwinnable. This is completely unwinnable. I'm putting it even below that.
Hudson, I actually see it a little differently. Syracuse needs 2 things to get this win, and they are a wing and a prayer. Come on, there's no chance Syracuse goes into Durham and upsets Duke. Ever since a 95-91 overtime victory in Durham in January of 2019, Duke has beaten Syracuse by an average of 15 points over those last 8 matchups, including 3 of the last 4 being decided by 20-plus points. This, for all the talk about it being a rivalry, Syracuse-Duke, no, stop it. It's not a rivalry. It is about as uncompetitive a matchup as it gets. Syracuse going to get massacred in Durham.
Wow, those are some strong feelings here from our analysts. I will say, Liam, Syracuse has won at Cameron Indoor Stadium twice since it joined the ACC, and not to toot my own horn, but I was at one of those matchups back in 2016. That 2019 game you mentioned, that had the likes of Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett playing for Duke. I don't think there's a Zion or an RJ playing for Duke this year, and this is a better Syracuse team than we've seen over the past couple seasons in terms of talent, in terms of athleticism that can match up with the Blue Devils. So maybe a little pessimism over here over Syracuse's road trips coming up, but the Orange do still have home games against Cornell coming up this week before it goes to Georgetown and play Niagara between Oregon and Duke in an ACC home opener against Pitt as well. We'll break down the upcoming schedule and a whole lot more here on Orange Press Pass as we wrap things up. There's still more to come in the month of December before 2023 comes to an end. Stick with us right here on OPP.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
One in 3 adults has pre-diabetes. That means it could be you, your favorite brother, your other brother, you, your football buddy, your football buddy. You, your plumber,
Breathe right into your foot.
your plumber's masseuse.
Yes.
You, your dog walker, your cat jogger. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back to Orange Press Pass in our CitrusTV studios. Ethan Frank, Hudson Ridley, Liam Griffin. The ACC opener today for Syracuse at Virginia. The Orange lose by 22. And an interesting number we found out. This is the 5th year since the ACC has expanded the conference schedule that Syracuse played on the road in this early December conference matchup. Coming into this year, guys, the Orange have been pretty successful before today's outing against UVA.
Yeah, today was where the tide really turned. If you look at these wins here, a big win, 97-63 over Georgia Tech. They put up 101 on Boston College in 2020, then a big win over Florida State and Notre Dame. 4 straight years, but you look at the point differential today, the wheels really fell off, and I think you can contribute that to the fact that Virginia is a lot better team than those previous 4 teams. Florida State was good in 2021, don't get me wrong, but Virginia was just a different animal today, and that's exactly why.
Yeah, Hudson, I remember watching the Florida State and Notre Dame games from the past 2 years, and they were like these gutsy, grinded out wins in very tough road environments. I mean, FSU had the longest ACC home winning streak at the time, and SU snapped it in that game, but today, just getting absolutely curb stomped by UVA. It shows that this year's Cavaliers team in a far different clash than the Irish, Seminoles, Eagles, or Yellow Jackets were.
And we knew coming into the year that the 4 teams at the top of the ACC would be Duke, North Carolina, Miami, and likely Virginia. Those were the teams in the top of the ACC preseason poll, and that is how it is playing out so far in terms of the rankings and what we've seen on the court. So when it comes to what we've got coming up for the Orange, a game against Cornell in just a couple days on Tuesday at Georgetown, like we talked about a lot, and then that trip to South Dakota to take on Oregon.
Yeah, I think you need to go 3-1 over the next 4 games at minimum. If we add Niagara to this list, you're probably going to beat Cornell. You're probably going to beat Niagara. You should beat Georgetown on the road because, like we talked about, the Hoyas thing. If you lose to Oregon, I'm not going to be sweating at all, but I think you have to be 8-4, Hudson, before you start exclusively playing ACC teams.
I think I can agree with that, LG. I'm not sure if I give them the chance to be 8-4, but at this point, looking at the schedule, easy win over Cornell and easy win over Georgetown. You would think Oregon's just where it gets.
So you look at this Cornell game specifically when we've got another Orange Press Pass at 12 a.m. Eastern time. That's when the calendar goes from Tuesday to Wednesday. The Big Red, they get up and down the court, averaging 86.4 points per game, shoot the ball pretty well from 3. The rebounding battle is going to be key as it has all year for Syracuse, Hudson.
Exactly, and today was another showing of why Syracuse struggles in the rebounding battle, losing yet again. But honestly, at the same time, it's Cornell. You have Naheem McLeod. That height should factor.
Yeah, Syracuse is Cornell's first Power 5 opponent, Hudson. And even though the Big Red are no mid-major coming into this game with just 1 loss, it's still a game Syracuse should win.
So as we wrap things up here today, Liam, what is your takeaway? I mean, there's still a long way to go for this team. Right?
You took the words right out of my mouth, Ethan. My final thought is that there is a long way to go. I mean, yeah, this was a tough Virginia team, but, and Arthur said this, once the game is over with and you handle your media duties, you've got to put it behind you. We still have a lot of games left. We've got to put this game behind us. There are still a lot of tough road games coming up. UNC, Pitt, Wake, NC State, Clemson. Yes, Virginia had an A+ shooting day, but Hudson, there is still a lot to work on in the practice facility.
While I agree with you, Liam, at the same time, I think it's also not time to push the panic button. We have a long time left in the season. This is just the first ACC game of the year, and it's a standalone. You still have more out-of-conference opponents before you get to that tougher conference slate. Give this team some time. Most of the production comes from the sophomores, and by January or February, this team, if they're in a spot to make the tournament, will be completely fine.
Liam said it. Put it behind you. You don't dwell on it. And you still have a lot of games left. That's what Adrian Autry said after this game. This one against Virginia got away from them, and that's going to happen. For a young team that is still learning and building on the fly, chemistry is coming along, but there is still a long way to go for this Syracuse team. Make sure to check us out on social media at CitrusTV Sports. Thanks for tuning in to OPP. For Liam, Griffin, and Hudson Ridley, I'm Ethan Frank. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.